The American dream isn't what it seems, and a hero has to help the homeless. Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Detective Comics 587 Batman. Batman visits the dark side of the American dream to find out who's terrorizing the homeless in Gotham City. While anarchy is about to hit the city streets, let's take, though, the tape measure and see how tall the Batman stands from Detective Comics number 587. Short of maybe just a few changes that they've made for now molded cape, he is, though, essentially going to be using the same body as the Nightfall Batman. Oh, I just gave it away. Would only be really telling you that in the next couple of minutes anyways. Batman, though, is still going to be standing the same because of that. The figure is going to be about 7 inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. Okay, so maybe it's not a couple of minutes. Here's what the figure, though, looks like with the Nightfall Batman. He happens, though, also be sharing the same body as well as the Silver Age Batman. Funny, though, enough that we've looked at both of these figures this week, and they are also sharing the exact same body, though they are sharing the same molds of tools. You can see also as well that they're changing out really the color schemes. All the costumes of the Greys are completely different from one another, as well as the capes and cowls. A lot of stuff gets offered up with Detective Comics 587's Batman. First, though, the figure does come included with a trading card. That happens, though, to take the full front page of that issue, where Batman is standing in the rainfall. Within the alley streets like this, you can see that he happens to also be sharing the same mold as what Todd and his team tried to replicate here with the cape. The only thing that's really different, though, is that not only is Batman here cast in shadows, but also his costume, though, in gray, is a lot lighter than what we're getting here in the figure. It's about the only thing I would have said that should have been really changed to the figure, because I feel like the gray should have been a little bit more lighter as it would have been in the issues. Notably, though, this is also illustrated by Norm Breyfogle, my boy when it comes to Batman drawings. He is certainly one of my all-time favorites, especially growing up and reading Detective Comics and Batman in the 80s and 90s. Breyfogle was my favorite illustrator of the Cape Crusader. On, though, the back of the card, it gives a very simple read-up, more or less just giving us a brief logline, essentially, to what the comic issues are going to be all about. His real name, though, isn't going to change at all. It's still going to be featured as Bruce Wayne. But a nice looking card, though, nonetheless. Let's move that off to the side. The figure does also come included, not with, though, a regular circular display stand. This would be the time I'd be basically holding this in my hand. I'd be saying it would be branded with the DC logo down below, but I can't do that this time around. Instead, though, Batman gets this pretty neat looking display stand that has an eagle head there on the top. You've got chains there on the bottom, and then neat little gargoyle heads on the sides. They almost kind of look like ram heads. On the bottom of this is all encased in plastic, although I gotta believe that this is still hollow plastic. It does have 2 peg places. This one's a little bit more convenient. This is a little bit more awkward. I did put this figure onto the stand at the beginning of this review, but you saw probably it kind of very much awkwardly kind of puts his one leg up on here. And with the sheer weight of the molded plastic cape, he does have a bit of an issue when it comes to standing on this display stand. Still, though, I welcome things like this. I'd love to see more display stands being incorporated with Batman characters that aren't just, again, the circular black display stand. Psst, with the DC logo branded down below. We're going to move that off, though, to the side. You guys want to see what that is? Okay. If you want to take Batman's legs here, again, basically you just want to bend the leg here just a little bit. You can turn Batman's head also, too. And then you're going to basically take your figure's feet. There's the peg hole right there. Line it up to the provided peg. I wasn't really going to be doing this, but if you guys did want to see it, just line up the feet accordingly. There's 1. There's 2. There's Batman standing on top of his display stand. I guess it is really secure enough, although again, it's just the placement of that one peg where you have to have Batman kind of awkwardly bending his knee like this. The figure, though, by the way, does have the plastic cape. He does also have over here, you can probably already see, he has a fabric cape too. Let's right now just remove him, put a display stand over here. I guess also just before we actually look at the alternate cape, let's look at some of the other accessories that also come include with the character. Now, I guess one of the benefits also of him using a molded cape, even though it does make the side of the figure very side heavy, at least, though, it does have this little resting point right here. So they've sculpted the cape, I feel, deliberately. So this piece also is leveled flat to the ground, along with his foot. They've also made this completely flat too. So it does, for the most part, I say for the most part, allow the figure to kind of get a balancing issue kind of fixed. Because you would think, again, with the cape. Anyways, Of the other accessories, though, that come included with Batman, he comes, first of all, with a Batarang. I feel like this is the same Batarang that got packed along with the Silver Age release, although in this case it's clearly more of a dark blue. It does go molded in such a way also that it can be gripped in either one of his hands. I haven't yet changed out the hands on the ends of his forearms. The figure does also come included with gestured hands. Now, I think with a character like this, especially the way they've molded the cape, I think I'm probably going to be swapping out those hands shortly for a hand like this instead. The figure does also come included with closed fists. All of these hands, I'm sure, by the way, we probably got them with other Batman releases. And again, if it's just a case of changing out the hands, take the hand that you want to use, easily divorce it from the rest of his forearm. Take then the hand you want to use. So there's the peg hole, there's the peg, simple shapes. Plug that in place. I couldn't help but also notice too that it seems like this hand is a little bit bigger. I mean, if you follow the form of the forearm, it goes right into the peg, then it kind of sort of seems like his hand gets a lot bigger at the end of it. Other than that though, again, you got yourself a nice gestured hand for Batman. Let's get the cape back in place. One of the issues also with the cape is the way they plugged it onto the top of his body. I didn't really want to talk about it just yet because I kind of want to run through the accessories, the remaining accessories first. But that will be, though, one issue that's going to face the Cape Crusader. The figure does also come included with a gas mask. Now, in order to get this onto the gas mask, onto the figure's face, you're going to have to detach the head first, slide the gas mask up. Don't worry, I'll show you guys in a second. And I believe he also comes included with a gas bomb. As you can see, it's nicely sculpted here. It does look like it's Scarface on the top. It's been a while, honestly, since I've read issue 587. But a nice little accessory. I don't really know if I have a purpose for it. It's not like I'm going to have this held in Batman's hands. Maybe I can have it just kind of displayed alongside the figure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Batman's cape, shall we? Don't worry, I'm going to go back to the gas mask, by the way. So Batman's body, the way that it works is that out of the packaging, he has the molded cape like this. He does also have the fabric cape, but they attach the exact same way. You probably have already seen several times. Basically what it is the cape attaches. So on the bottom here, you can see that there's an open socket. And then on the bottom of his cape, there is a peg. The peg plugs into that socket. And if you push it down far enough, it should, in realistic terms, it should stay in place. Sometimes, though, if Batman happens to fall backwards, and it's probably going to happen a couple of times in this review, the cape is prone to popping off. I mean, it's again a simple fix. It's just again a case of popping it back onto his body. I wish there was kind of a little more of a secure way, but to be honest, though, you have to kind of think of what would be the easiest way to change out capes. So if you didn't want to change out the cape, I guess before we do that, I'll show you guys what the cape looks like. He has the cool points there on the sides of his shoulders. Brave Fog was really good for doing that when it came to Batman. Head sculpt is also really quite good on him as well. I feel like it's a little wide on the sides, but for the most part, I think it does look very much like Brave Fog's work. The only thing I will say, though, while I like the emblem, while I like the utility belt, those are all getting borrowed over, by the way, from the Nightfall Batman, I can't help but, though, notice that the coloring of his body is a little too dark. I mean, Batman from the 90s generally had a more lighter gray treatment when it came to his costume. That would imply for his torso, his arms, his lower legs. Instead, they chose to go with a more darker gray. And while I don't think it's a bad color for Batman, if you, again, wanted to match it closer to the issue, Batman, I feel, should really have had a lighter gray outfit instead. Love, though, the emblem. Love the emblem. Again, utility belt is no real different at all from the Nightfall Batman. I'll bring that in right now. So again, like you've got the same torso. Literally, though, you've got the exact same utility belt, same trunks, same lower legs. Everything is the same. In fact, actually, if you look at his gauntlets, they're also the same as well. Little blades that he's got on the sides of his gloves. So if, again, you guys wanted to change out the cape, it's just, again, a case of popping this off. Now, if you did first want to add the gas mask, because I did, after all, say I was going to do that, just pop the head off first. Hope that he stands in the meantime. Take your gas mask and basically just slide it up the bottom of his head. Just like that. Once you've got it on there, then, I want to make sure, again, I got it all the way on there. Once you've got it on there, then go ahead quickly dash back to the cape. Actually, you know what? We'll just take the cape off for right now. Plug Batman's head back in place. And then, of course, you can always go back in there and fix it. The only one issue I have really with the gas mask isn't so much the way that it's applied to the Batman's face, but more so I worry that it's going to start to scrape the nose of Batman. Again, you probably will need to fix this a couple of times. I know it's not quite really on there the way that I want it. But again, my only real issue, though, is I feel like that's going to start to scrape the paint, especially on his nose. Detaching that, at least for right now. See what damage we've done. Okay, we've done no damage. Whoosh. So again, like the cape itself, let's plug Batman's head back in place here. The cape looks good. Good hard plastic. On the back of it, actually, they've gone in there and sculpted it, so it kind of gives it a more like faux leather look to it. Easily, they could have just gone in there and made this a completely smooth surface, but I do appreciate that they went in there and textured some of the cape. The cape, again, is very hard, it's very rigid, it's going to give a lot more extra weight to Batman. If, though, you would prefer a cloth cape, it's easily a case just of popping off the head. We'll take the cape piece here and we'll move it off to the side. Then we'll take the cloth cape. So the cloth cape essentially looks the same from at least the collar piece. So if you look at the neck and you look at the spikes on the shoulders, they are pretty much identical to one another, and that's basically where the similarities stop. If you look at the back of the cape, though, I mean, clearly you can see where it's plastic, and then the rest of it down below here is the fabric. There's really no way around this. The only way that that would have worked is had they done this all in fabric. But again, you'd have a harder time, I feel, to add the spikes, and I don't think it would have looked as seamless because it has to go on top of Batman's head. So what you do then is you take this, and you can easily just attach Batman's head back in place. You want to make sure it's all the way on there too. There we go. And once that's then on there, you can basically follow the same format. So there's the shape, and align it up to the peg, and you're going to snap it in place. Is it the most secure? It isn't the most secure. Again, when you kind of are moving the figure around, you'll notice though that every once in a while though, like the collar piece will just kind of come off. It's just, you know, obviously you're just going to have to snap it back in place. And being that this is also a fabric cape, they've got a wire that runs down here along the edge tips here and all the way down the side as well. Is it a wide cape? It is a wide cape. If I can actually just hold the sides of Batman here, it kind of gives you at least an idea of how big the cape actually is. And of course, as you know, if you're one that likes to style your figures a little bit better, you could just bring the cape around. You can bring the cape up a little bit too if you want to have Batman with a little, you know, kind of looking a little bit more dynamic. You can easily do a lot more with it. It's a big cape though, so you may want to even find yourself kind of tucking what remnants you have behind, just kind of behind Batman, so it doesn't look like he's taking up as much space. I think though in the end, while I do like the fabric cape, I'm probably though just going to stick with the idea of using the plastic cape because I just like the look of it. And two, I don't have to worry about fussing and mussing, trying to get the actual pose of the cape down exactly the way I want it. For the figure's articulation though, looking back at Batman, so the head's going to be on a ball joint. It allows the head to rotate all the way around. The head can look up and it can look down, but again, like when you are moving the head up, sometimes though it does pop this off. The head's going to also rock back and forth as well. Now the upper torso, if you are familiar with the Nightfall Batman, you're obviously going to be familiar with the articulation on this figure. Upper torso is going to be on a ball joint. Lower torso is also on a ball joint. For the arms, you're going to get yourself a T pose. The thing about it though is as you're moving these shoulders out, this is going to pop this off. Kind of wish in a way really that the peg was a little bit longer and that they made the socket a little deeper, so when you did plug it in place, you know it was going to stay in place. But yeah, moving out the arms though is going to cause this to pop. The arms are going to move forward and back. Let's get this all the way on there. Arms are going to move forward and back. You're going to have yourself the swivel that's still in the bicep, a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands are going to rotate back and forth. Plug that back. As for the legs do split out, almost a full Van Damme splits. You can take the legs and move them forward. You can move them back. There's a swivel there at the top of the thigh. A double hinge on the knee. No articulation here for the boot because the boot's just a continued sculpt for the rest of the calf. However, though, he is still going to have the ankle pivot, an ankle rocker, and the figure's still going to have the toe articulation. Thank goodness he still has the toe articulation. In the end, a good-looking Batman. The thing, again, about it, though, is looking at it, the original source material, Brayfogle works, still one of my favorites. I can't help it again. While I do like the gray that they chose, I mean, I'm not arguing that at all. I have to, though, kind of look at this and look at the original source material and not think to myself that, you know, again, like all those issues back in the 90s, generally Batman had a more lighter gray costume. The emblem is matching the same. The head's pretty good, too. And again, they've done a nice enough job to replicate the plastic cape. Other than really just the coloring of his costume being too dark, the only one other issue I really have with the figure is the fact that, like, just his head and his shoulder area comes frequently off, just because, again, like as you're moving the arms around, even like just turning his head from time to time, it will detach the entire top of his entire top of his shoulders completely off. I wish, though, that they had maybe made a longer peg so that when you attached it securely to his torso, you knew it wasn't going to be going anywhere. Now, I sat on getting Detective Comics 587 Batman, not for not wanting the figure, but not for paying the price of what he was going for. Checking on places like eBay and even online sites, easily this guy was selling for $80 to $100, and I didn't want to pay that price. At least, though, he had enough things offered with him that marking the price up from what a traditional DC Multiverse figure could be, I could justify at least him being a little bit more expensive, but not $80 to $100 more expensive. Sure enough, though, I happened to be on Amazon, and while I was looking at other things, just happened to look up DC Multiverse just to see what they had offered. Sure enough, though, they had this guy marked down to, I think it was like $56, $57, and I added him to my cart right away. In the end, though, I'm really happy to have this guy as part of my collection. Being a big fan, though, especially Detective Comics during the 90s. I mean, I could go into a comic book store, and this just dates me, by the way. To go into a store back then, you could easily drop $1.25 and get yourself an individual issue. You had yourself a $20 on you, and easily you would be the richest kid in the comic book store walking out with a stack of comics. Batman and Detective Comics was always it for me, and Brave still is one of my favorite Batman artists. To have those two things recreated here in an action figure of Batman, I couldn't be, again, any happier. I do like the cloth cape, and maybe the more that I look at it, I do like that there's a lot more room to spare when it comes to what you can do with the actual cape. The cape does have the wire frame, so that's one good thing about it. Brave was always really known for drawing an elaborate looking cape for Batman. And I think Todd and his team have done that well enough with this release that you can go pretty crazy with Batman's cape if you want to. If you like to play it though safe, you can always go back to the idea of Batman having the plastic cape as the figure comes out of the packaging with him. The plastic cape works quite well because, again, it looks exactly like it does from the cover of that issue. The only thing about it, though, is it does add unnecessary weight to the figure, especially with him standing, especially with keeping that cape still attached to the rest of his torso. What do you guys think, though, of Batman from Detective Comics 587? Have you guys had the chance to pick this one up? Or is this one that's still on your radar and you'd like to get this for yourself? If you guys did enjoy this video, in the meantime, you can certainly hit it with a like. If you guys want to stick around for more and you're loving the content, make sure you hit the subscribe. Yes, make sure you turn on the bell, okay? But make sure, of course, you're coming back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.